Welcome back to America now. US lawmakers have passed legislation aiming to sanction the International Criminal Court. Chief Prosecutor of the ICC, Karim Khan, is seeking to arrest two top Israeli officials, including Benjamin Netanyahu. Despite the bill passing, it was the Republican majority House of Representatives that gave it the green light. Up next will be the Senate, where it's unlikely to attract strong Democratic support. Earlier, I spoke to Republican Representative Nathaniel Moran, who is one of the 247 US politicians who have chosen to back Mr. Netanyahu.
I think you start from the very beginning about who should be making these decisions, and the International Criminal Court is not the entity that should be making the decisions about whether or not Israel or the United States or other countries around this world are exercising its right to defend itself in this moment in history. And whether or not that passes their moral test or their legal test, it's the wrong entity to be making that decision. In fact, that intrudes upon the sovereignty of the United States, who has not opted into the ICC, or Israel the same way. If we're leaving it to other people whose moralities are different, whose political objectives are different, frankly, to make these decisions, I think we're giving up our national sovereignty.
But who's going to bring people to justice if there is no International Criminal Court? People like Vladimir Putin and his Russian cronies, if people like you undermine the whole idea of a criminal court for the world?
Well, there's ways to work in partnership against totalitarian regimes and tyrannical governments like we're seeing across the globe, Putin being one of the chieftains of that. But when you try to make a moral equivalency between what Hamas has done and what Israel is doing in response, I think that's a mistake. And the people around the world realize that when you look at the October 7th attacks and how horrible that was from a terrorist organization, a known terrorist organization, and then you try to morally equivocate and say, well, that's the same morally as what Israel is doing in response to that, I think the people around the world understand that's very different.
It's not moral equivalence, really. What it's doing is this warrant is applying the concepts of international law to one group of people and also to a different group of people. It's not comparing the two, and what it's saying is very different in terms of what Prime Minister Netanyahu and his defence minister are accused of doing, saying that Israel intentionally, systematically deprived the civilian population in all parts of Gaza, to quote from it, of objects indispensable to human survival. And at the beginning of the war, Yoav Gallant, the defence minister, said this. He said, we are putting a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no water, no gas. It's all closed. I mean, supporters of the ICC would say that's on the record. The ICC has the Israeli defense minister and his boss, the prime minister, banged to rights there, doesn't he?
No, I don't think so, because that particular ICC warrant, the proposed warrant, says that they're going after Netanyahu for crimes against humanity, and you read portions of that. But the truth is, Hamas is the one that's morally and legally responsible for the atrocities that's happening in the Middle East. And when Israel says to the folks in Gaza, look, we're going to have to come in, and they did this here recently with Rafah. They said, we're going to have to come in with an offensive to eradicate who remains of Hamas. We're giving you a heads up, and we're letting you have time to get out. Boy, that's morally reasonable and legally justifiable, in my opinion.
There's a big dispute about the number of civilians who've died in Gaza, but the Israelis themselves say 16,000 Palestinian civilians have died. Others would say it's over 30,000. You are a man of proud of his Christian faith. What do you think Jesus Christ would have made of the deaths of 16,000 innocent men, women and children in Gaza?
Yeah, I think he would have mourned, and I think he does mourn for their lives, as do I. I think it's an atrocity. There's no question about that. But the question that we're debating tonight, the question that's on the table is, who's morally and legally responsible for that? And what you keep coming back to is the ICC is the body that has the right to say who is responsible for that legally. I disagree with that, and I disagree with their conclusion that Israel is the one that's legally and morally responsible for that. It's not. It is Hamas.